Hey up, it's Klye here. The Crestfallen Warrior is a staple of the Souls games. The warrior who tried and failed and gave up and just waits for the end of the world. That resonates with me. So today we're going to give him that extra chance and we're going to see if the Crestfallen Warrior can finally beat Dark Souls 2. If I had any technical knowledge, I'd have done what Bonfire VN does by putting the NPC into the world and watching them fight the enemies with their own AI. However, I'm a bit too thick to figure that stuff out. I picked the warrior class to start with, and not just because we're the Crestfallen Warrior, but because they start with 11 dex, and that is the exact number we need to wield our one and only weapon. But we'll get to that in a minute. The first order of business will be to talk to our doppelganger, Soldan. He's a little bit hard to see considering his face is always buried in his hands, but I feel like I replicated him quite well. The beard's a bit off, but other than that I think it's quite a faithful representation. Soldan wears a ring of steel protection which increases your physical defense, but to get this ring you have to die 100 times. Now, knowing me, I probably could achieve 100 deaths naturally, but just to be sure, I'm going to be cliff diving in Majula. I suppose now's a good time to talk about what gear I'll be using and how this is going to work. Now this is not just going to be a playthrough where I'm limited to wearing his gear, because that'd just be like a regular playthrough. This will be a playthrough where I try to figure out what the Crestfallen Warrior would likely try to achieve in his adventure. Of course we need to look the part. Soldan wears knight armour and knight gauntlets, yet, funnily enough, he also wears wanderer boots. So somewhere along the way he lost his trousers, which sounds like quite the adventure. He has a bastard sword and a silver eagle kite shield, and of course, the ring of steel protection. He's the leader of the Way of Blue Covenant, which gives rewards for killing invaders. Those rewards are the blue seal ring you get from just joining the Covenant, the blood bite ring, the spell Hush, and the blue tearstone ring. If you manage to kill 10 invaders, then you get all of the rewards, so killing 10 invaders is on our list of objectives. Mercifully for me, NPC invaders count towards the Covenant rank as well. Now there's no information on the upgrade levels of his weaponry or his specific stat points, so I'm just going to be upgrading them to appropriate levels to match his gear requirements. And if Soldan is anything like the other Crestfallen Warriors, then his weaponry would be at max upgrade, so that's one of our goals as well. I'm sure there's somebody out there who knows all the specific NPC stats, but I can't find anything out there, so this doesn't seem to be public. So when it comes to Soldan's stats, I'm just going to have to try and get as close as I can with the information I have. If we take a look at Soldan's trophy, it's for increasing the population of Majula. So another one of our goals will be to bring everyone back to Majula. There's a Dark Souls 2 comic called Into the Light, and it shows that Soldan wears the warrior armor set from Dark Souls 1. He also seems to have worn that in early versions of Dark Souls 2. However, that armor set is not in the game. Well, it kind of is, because the equivalent of the warrior set from Dark Souls 1 is Pate's set in Dark Souls 2. So ideally, I would like to acquire Pate's set just for the lore reasons. You know, maybe it was Soldan's before it was Pate's. Or maybe it was Pate who stole his trousers. As for consumables and stuff, I'm only going to be using the Estus Flask. I'm probably going to upgrade it a couple of times, but I'm not going to be bothering to max it out or anything. Soldan can use an Estus in combat, but he doesn't use anything else, so neither will we. I will be making one exception, and that is for human effigies, because Soldan is in human form. So to be accurate to the character, I'm going to try and stay in human form as often as possible. So essentially, I'm going to see if Soldan can complete all of his personal goals, and maybe find some new ones. I died 100 times in Majula and went to speak to Soldan, and he gave me the Ring of Steel Protection. Yeah, I know I could have just killed him here for the ring, but I need him alive. Foreshadowing. Now all I need to do is acquire the rest of his gear. I thought I'd start by getting a few souls together and then going to Morlin's shop in Majula and buying the Silver Eagle Kite Shield. To get Soldan's sword, we need to get lucky with a random drop or defeat the last giant. And given my relationship with RNGesus, I went to fight the last giant. Before I went into the fight though, I summoned in Pate. He helped a little bit, he has a really massive shield and a really long spear, but mostly he was just getting squashed. Fighting the last giant with the broken straight sword that the warrior starts with sounds bad, and that's because it is, but it's not as bad as the broken straight sword in the other games, because in this game you can actually do double-digit damage, so it's not too bad. Pate ended up dying because he's crap, but I managed to win without him, so it's okay. Killing the last giant gives us the soldier's key, which lets us access the area where the bastard sword is, although strangely, after our bad encounter with Pate, I noticed that my trousers had disappeared. That was really odd. I now have Soldan's sword and shield, and all that's left now really is the armour. His upper set is just past the Dragon Rider, so I gave the Dragon Rider a little bit of cheese. Let him come towards you for 6 steps, roll past him, and if all goes well, he'll go for a swim. This unlocks the path to No Man's Wharf, which contains my armour. My armour that appears to be blocked off by a statue in Scholar of the First Sin. Luckily, Melentia sells a fragrant branch of yore for 12k. Melentia, of course, being someone we need to bring back to Majula anyway, so it's good that she's here. She also sells a few bright bugs. These things make you do more damage and take less damage for a short period of time. Now, I know a really good glitch for these, but I'm not going to abuse it, I'm just going to show it off, alright? The next area is kind of really good for this. Activate a bright bug in any location where your character is moist, and then save and quit. When you load back in, the bright bug will last forever. It's such a fantastic glitch, and I used it for this next little section. After unhardening the hard man, you have to go and fight a big massive dude. I suppose if you're quick you could just run around him, but you know, I had the bright bug on, so I thought I kind of want to use it. After all that, I picked up the knight set and I equipped it. The trousers don't feel quite right, do they? I then went to deactivate the bright bug glitch, and you can do that by dying or by fast travelling. Flexile Sentry is up next, and my sword broke. Oh, that went well. I came back with an upgraded sword and did a fairly standard fight, just waiting for the club man to do his slow attacks and then poking when I got the chance. Admittedly, I did get smacked around a bit, but you know, that's fine. Eventually, I took the victory. Doing that gives us access to a Lost Bastille, and in here we can get our real trousers. Just get the key, open the door, and in here you smack this rock, kill the guys who run and explode, and on this corpse is our Wanderer's Boots. We are now in full-on Crestfallen Warrior mode. I decided to go through Huntsman's Copse next, and on the way I saw Creighton locked up, and the bonfire here is pretty useful because the next boss can give me some issues because it's a gank boss. So I decided to get the key to the bonfire and have a chat with Creighton. He seems like a lovely guy. There's also an NPC invasion here, so that is perfect for our Covenant. It's time for the Skeleton Lords, and I have to say, having a sword, a shield, and an Estus made this fight so much more bearable for me. I mean, just being able to block is always a good thing. There's probably like 3,000 skeleton soldiers in this fight, but only 2 bone wheel skeletons. It came down to the wire, but eventually I ended up winning. Right after the Skeleton Lords we can find Klye. She can help upgrade my gear, and she's one of the people we need to bring back to Majula. I spoke to Soldan and he gave me a Bloodbite ring for killing an NPC invader. I mean, it's not an especially useful ring, but I suppose I'll put it on at some point. Next up we have the Covetous Demon. After that I went to go and find Pate. He had something next to him as well. My old trousers. I thought quite long and hard about this. Should I kill Pants Pincher Pate here so I could get his armour? Soldan's original armour. If Pate had survived the fight with the last giant, he'd have given me his gear for free. However, as we know, Pate failed in that task. You know, I'm going to keep my sword clean. I don't think Soldan would just go around killing people. I'm just going to hope that Pate gets what's coming to him. After that moral quandary, I made my way to see Laddersmith Gilligan, another one on our list of people to bring back to Majula, and probably one of my favourite characters. I think it's his hair, and the bandana of course, reminds me of Snake. Speaking of snakes, the next boss is Mitha. She often doesn't pose too much of a threat, but I think because I'm mid-rolling, it was, you know, kind of throwing me off a little bit. Absolutely nothing to do with me being bad at the game or anything. No, it couldn't be that. It came down to the wire, as do most of my fights, but thanks to my shield, I blocked her charge attack and landed the final blow. Very nice. There's nothing particularly special in Iron Keep besides a couple of invaders, so we have to take them both out to increase the Covenant rank. After a billion years of baiting, I finally made it through Iron Keep and I went to fight the hot horny boy, the old Iron King. Very standard fight, I just dodged and I hit his hands. Simple enough, although at one stage, he lifted me up. I've never seen that happen before, but I imagine if he'd have lifted me up and dunked me in the lava, I'd probably be a little bit more mad, but thankfully that didn't happen. What did happen is, I winned. Since I'm trying to bring everyone back to Majula, I decided to run back to the Forest of Fallen Giants now that I had all my gear, and I found Kale the cartographer. Our conversation was quite rudely interrupted, but I ended up getting the key, and now Kale is on his way back to Majula. Another person to save at this time would be Carhillion. You need at least 8 intelligence to talk to him though, so in our version of Soldan, I have to give him 8 intelligence, otherwise he wouldn't be able to fulfill his goals. Our final person to grab is Rosabeth. I used an anaphrodisiac and softened her up a little bit, and then we had a little quick chat, and it turns out her clothes are ruined and she has no trousers. She reminds me of me, so I gave her my spare knight's leggings. In our version of Soldan, that's how he lost his original trousers. He gave them to Rosabeth. Ah, a true love story. Although now she is just kind of stood here with just trousers on, so maybe she needs some more clothes than just that. I can't leave her like this, can I? And that's it. That's everyone back at Majula. And if I didn't already have all the trophies, it would have popped here, so let's just pretend that it did. Soldan's wishes are finally coming true. On the way to the next boss, I saw Creighton again. Talking to him here will make him look for Pate and they'll fight to the death, which is something we definitely have to see. But before we can do that, I have to fight Najka, and unfortunately I didn't manage to get the cheese this time around. She kind of bucked me off, but I'm not going to shed a tear over it. After her, we can fight the Prowling Magus and Congregation, and I didn't almost die or anything. Absolutely not, that didn't happen. But these dudes drop a Titanite slab, which will be crucial for me to get my plus 10 weapon. Right after that kerfuffle, we can witness the Creighton v Pate fight, and I just stood back and watched the brawl unfold. I didn't want to get involved. I'm not sure if the outcome is guaranteed here, or if it's just down to how the AI is feeling on the day. So I was curious about this whole scenario. The fight raged on for quite some time, because they both deal piss all damage to each other, but I think that's intended because you're kind of supposed to step in here and pick a side. Pate is clearly the stronger bet though, because he has a shield and a long-range weapon with seemingly infinite stamina. Annoyingly, I didn't disable the HUD before this fight. Very professional. He did get quite low, but ultimately, Pate came out the victor in the end. However, if we leave now, Pate goes away forever and we miss our chance to get his armor. I can't have that.
Ow, that really hurt. It bit right through my trousers.
This is the face of sated revenge. I headed back to Majula to flash my new armor, but I won't be wearing it. In our story, Soldan gifted his original armor to Rosabeth. Aww. I spoke to Soldan and he gave me the Hush spell for killing at least 5 invaders so far. The funny thing is, Soldan doesn't have a catalyst, which means he can't cast Hush, so neither can we. What I did was I got 10 attunement and I just slotted it just to keep it as a memento, but obviously I won't be casting it. I know that just because he gives these as a Covenant reward doesn't necessarily mean he has these items, but I feel like he must have them on his person to be able to give them to me in the first place. That's my logic anyway. Since the whole Pate versus Creighton thing, I'd opened up Seldora and I thought I might as well go and fight Freya. Just running from head to head works well, as always, although I did get squirted on and that almost finished me off, but I managed to wriggle free and get those final hits in. After killing Freya, I had enough souls and enough levels to finally reach what I believe Soldan's levels may be, with a little bit of a bend because I need to give him certain stats just for the story. Because I'd brought everyone back to Majula, Soldan gifted me a soul vessel. When he did that, it made my recording go all glitchy. Ooh, spooky. But with that soul vessel, I went to the Firekeepers to jiggle with my stats. And here's what I believe Soldan may have. He has 1320 HP, and he swings a decent amount when you fight him, so this health and stamina looks about right. With his gear, he medium rolls, so his vitality must be base or fairly low. I doubt he actually has 10 attunement, but for the sake of Hush, I had that on just to slot it, but you don't need that, that's completely superfluous. 20 strength and 11 dex to wield the sword, 24 ADP to get the iframes we all deserve and to hit the health requirements, 8 in intelligence so he could rescue Carhillion, which I don't think Soldan actually has, he probably has base, but as I say, for the sake of the story, and 5 faith because it's the base level. And that's it, this is our final form in terms of stats. As I say, some things needed to be manipulated just a little bit just to match the story requirements, but I think this is fairly close to what the actual Soldan would have. I decided to go down to the gutter next, and as always, it went really well. But down in the Black Gulch, I got invaded, which is great because we're nearing the max rank of our Covenant, so I can finally get all of the gear together. Although sadly, I'm not very good at fighting human opponents, but that doesn't matter too much when you press jump attack slightly before he does, so when you collide in the air, you hit him first, like some sort of Japanese anime. Truly, an epic gamer moment. After all that excitement, we get to fight the Rotten. I do actually like this boss, he reminds me of the Adjudicator from Demon Souls, but he's got a bigger arena. The Rotten gets a lot of flack for some reason, I don't know why. Who's your favourite boss? Now it's time to fight the Ruin Sentinels, and it was going really well, until Alessia hit me with the Captain America and I healed in a very bad position. One of my biggest weaknesses, healing out in the open. Absolute donkey. But ignore that, once I'd got the spacing down, it was just a matter of baiting the big hit moves, and then when they got together at the end, I managed to get a big swipe for a double kill. Amazing. After that we have the short walk to prison and we can find our last Great One's soul, the Lost Sinner. I never used to like this boss until fairly recently, and I've started to really enjoy the duels. Obviously having the shield is good, but I still think I prefer to roll her attacks. I don't know, it feels a bit like a dance in the dark. She did some wild crazy move at the end, but the lock-on locked off and I didn't see any of it. I just kind of saw her final pose. That was a shame. Now that we've killed all of Act 1's bosses, we can go to Dranglake Castle, and there is a lot of who-haddery to be done here, but while we're in here, we can get invaded again, which is good. It does seem like the vanilla NPC invasions are quite weak. I mean, I'm not complaining in any way, I'm just, pointing it out. Actually no, they're really difficult, and it took a lot of skill to fight them off and win. Yeah, we'll go with that. In a few more invasions, we'll finally have everything that Soldan owns. I just need to get through the twin dragon riders. Once you take out the archer, then it's a simple fight against the dragon rider from earlier, although the arena can't kill him, so you do have to fight him legit. But he's super slow and he leaves himself open constantly. Circle strafe, hit him in the arse, easy win. Next up we have the Mirror Knight, which has the potential to summon in an invader. Now I'm curious about this. If anyone knows the answer, please do let me know. I can't find this anywhere, probably because no one cares. If the Mirror Knight summoned in a human, would I get another point in the Way of Blue Covenant? I personally don't think it would because it's not a typical invasion, although I do wish that the NPC summons counted towards the Covenant because I took so long with this guy, he summoned loads of times. He even tried to summon a dude while there was already a dude in the arena. I have never seen that before. Now here's another question. How many dudes can the Mirror Knight summon? Once again, I'll leave that to brighter minds. With the defeat of the Mirror Knight, we can now go to the Shrine of Amarna, everyone's favourite. A positive aspect of this place is that we can get invaded again, and he's actually really easy. As I was saying, he's really easy if you cheese him. Which, Soldan is a very knowledgeable man, so he would know all of these cheeses, I'm sure. What we don't need to cheese is the Frogdom. This guy does massive attacks, but they leave him open for like 5 minutes, so you can quite easily just bait the close range attack, and then you win. Just past the Frogdom, we have our final invader, and once I finish them off, I will have reached the max rank in the Way of Blue Covenant. Our final obstacle for one of our tasks is Big Bell Boy Velstadt. Just dodge his bell and stab when you can. My damage is falling behind quite bad now, but once we take out Velstadt, this unlocks more stock for our friend Klye. So I killed Velstadt very slowly. Took me a while, but I did kill him. I then got the King's Ring and went back to Majula to see Klye. She now sells Titanite chunks and a Titanite slab, which means I can finally get my Bastard Sword and my Silver Eagle Kite Shield to +10. Obviously, I could have done this much earlier in the game, however, I wanted to try and use my allies as much as I could. Soldan relies on his allies. And because I'd reached top rank in the Way of Blue, I got the blue Tearstone ring. Everything that Soldan owns now belongs to us. Well, almost everything. There's still one thing we need. We just need to rush through Aldia's Keep, fight the Flying Demon, easily get past the Dragon Guards, and then get the Ashen Mist Heart. Fight the Giant Lord's Toes, run to the Throne of Want to fight the Throne Watcher and Throne Defender with a little bit of cheese, and then ultimately fight Nashandra. All fairly standard. I have an upgraded sword, upgraded shield, and an Estus Flask. After all that, Soldan can finally sit down on the throne and become the ruler of Drang Lake, where I think he'd probably take Rosabeth as his queen, and then the story would repeat, as is Dark Souls tradition. And that is it. That is Dark Souls 2 beaten as Soldan, the Crestfallen Warrior. He absolutely could have finished every single one of his goals if he stood up and tried one more time. A beautiful life lesson. However, if we truly want to become Soldan, we must defeat Soldan. It was a lot more anticlimactic than I was expecting. I was hoping to attack him and he would attack back, but that didn't happen. Probably because I was doing too much damage. I can only apologise. Who cares about the Throne of Want? This is the only throne I want. Thank you very much for watching. I know this one was a little bit silly because obviously you can beat the game with a sword and a shield and some Estus Flasks. But this was more about exploring the NPC themselves, you know? What's their story? Who are they? Who do they like? Who do they dislike? How would things go if they continued their adventure? And I think this is pretty accurate as to what would happen with Soldan. Thank you very much for watching. Please do let me know any other fun challenge ideas you'd like to see. I'm always open to suggestions. Please do leave a like if you like and subscribe if you want to. And as always, take care. Speaking of snakes, the next boss... Speaking of snakes, the next boss... Speaking of snakes, the next boss. Speaking of snakes, the next nest. Speaking of snakes, the next boss. Speaking of boss.